Hello and welcome. Tonight, we're going to step quietly into the dim, smoky world of the medieval baker. Long before supermarkets and sourdough starters, before gas ovens and gluten-free fads, there was the village baker, a person whose daily life was shaped by fire, flour, and fatigue. It was not an easy life, but it was essential. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's drift. Back in time, imagine a narrow, cobbled street in a small medieval town, perhaps in the 14th century England or France. It's still dark, very early, hours before the sun rises. But one home already flickers with light. A fire glows in the hearth. The baker is awake. They have to be, because the bread must be ready before the market opens, before the townspeople stir. In many towns, bakers lived right above their bakehouses. They slept, with the scent of yeast and smoke in the air. Some found it comforting. Others never really got used to it. The day starts early, around 2 or 3 in the morning. The baker rises in the dark, perhaps with aching joints. He or she, in some rare cases, makes their way downstairs, into the bakehouse. There is no electricity, no running water, just heavy sacks of coarse flour, a wooden table, a huge clay oven, and patience. The first task is to feed the fire. The baker carefully adds wood, adjusting the flame to heat the stone oven evenly. Too hot, and the bread will burn. Too cold, and the dough will not rise. Flour, water, salt, and sometimes yeast. That's all. No preservatives, no fancy mixers. The flour was often ground from barley or rye, cheaper than wheat. It was coarse, full of husks, sometimes even mixed with sawdust or chalk to stretch the supply. The dough was kneaded by hand, hours of physical work, to develop the gluten until the mass was elastic and smooth. Then it rested, as the baker prepared the oven. The oven itself was a domed structure of stone or brick, usually shared among the town. You might not think of baking as dangerous, but in the Middle Ages, it was. The heat of the ovens was intense. Burns were common. Inhaling flour dust could choke the lungs, and explosions were not unheard of. If gas built up in the confined oven space, and if the bread came out poorly, too flat, too hard, or undercooked, the baker could be fined, or worse, publicly humiliated. In some towns, bakers who cheated on weight or quality were tied to their carts and dragged through the streets. Bakers were respected, but not wealthy. They were part of the working class, essential, but replaceable. In cities, bakers often belonged to guilds. These guilds set rules, prices, even working hours. They provided some protection, but also added pressure. Guild inspectors might weigh loaves, test their quality, and punish violations. Some bakers specialized, others made only rye loaves or special festival breads. On holidays, they might craft symbolic shapes, crosses, wreaths, or tiny figurines. Bread was more than food, it was survival. For many peasants, it made up nearly 80% of their daily calories. Bad harvest? The baker was blamed. Good harvest? The baker worked longer hours. People stood in line at dawn to get their share. Children were sent to the bakehouse, carrying coins or chickens to barter, and for the poor, the smell of baking bread was often the smell of hunger. They could smell it, but not taste it. So the next time you slice a loaf, or tear a piece of warm bread from the middle, remember the medieval baker. They worked in silence, before the world was awake, in soot, in heat, in obscurity. They didn't bake for fame or fortune. They baked because if they didn't, people would go hungry. And now, As we leave this dusty old bakehouse behind, you can drift off, knowing that even in the hardest times, someone, somewhere, was always up before dawn, baking. Good night, and sleep well.